saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I've built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, even children get older, and I'm getting older too. Oh, I'm getting older too. Take my love, take it down. Climb a mountain and turn around. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, where the landslide bring it down. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, well, the landslide bring it down. Oh, the landslide bring it down.
Sorry, I am on mute. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Paula Bowens, and I am the JMU Black Alumni Chapter President. Welcome to Black in a Days. We've been doing this event since, I believe, 2018, and I learn something new each time. I'm excited for you to hear the experience of each of our panelists. So enjoy our evening. So a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you're on mute. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat room. We'll try to integrate them into the discussion. If not, we'll have 10 minutes after the conversation for Q question and answers, or answers and questions, excuse me. So tonight's agenda, welcome. I should say happy homecoming to everyone first off. Happy homecoming to everyone. I have the honor of introducing our president, and our president will then introduce our moderator to get the conversation going. So let me just talk a little bit about our president, President Jonathan Alger. He is in his 10th year as James Madison University. He has led JMU's development of new vision to be national model of engaged university, engaged with ideas and the world, a strategic plan focused on engaged learning, community engagement, and civic engagement. During his tenure at JMU, he has already exceeded the ambitious of 200 million goal for a comprehensive Unleash fundraising campaign. The university is expected to be reclassified as a national university within the next year. We are grateful for President Alger and his support of the Black Alumni Chapter. Please join me in welcoming President Alger to our third Black in a Days conversation. President Alger.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you for your service. I know you wear many hats with JMU, so thanks for all you do. Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to be with you, at least virtually, but I do look forward to seeing many of you, I hope, on campus very soon. And that pesky little snow icon, I think, has disappeared from my phone for this weekend. So I hope that will be the case, that we'll have a little bit of warmth for homecoming, but I know you will bring the warmth with you. So I do want to thank the Black Alumni Chapter for your leadership in putting on this event. And really, the conversation tonight builds on important work that we've been doing in recent years to ensure that JMU is a welcoming and inclusive place for everybody who wants to learn, work, and live here. And from the previous Black in the Days events to our Madison Vision Series panel with Black alumni last February, to the conversations that are happening right now on campus really every day, we're working to try to connect our past with the future. And that's part of what this is all about tonight, to capitalize on the leadership of those with firsthand experience of what building campus community really looks like at James Madison University. And we have a lot of folks that are heroes in that regard with us tonight. So at JMU, as you know, we're engaged in this work literally every single day. And just this week, for example, we are concluding our most extensive look at the challenges that face us with our comprehensive campus climate study that we're in the midst of right now. We also have, of course, the Task Force on Racial Equity. Some of you here tonight have been working with the task force, which is also making tremendous strides as we explore best practices in higher education and make recommendations to university leadership across the board. So thank you to all of you who are serving with the task force and for all that all of you are doing to help JMU in a variety of ways right now. Now, speaking of service, that is, of course, at the heart of what the BAC does every day. I know you may no longer be students at JMU or even be on campus regularly, but you certainly continue to show us what it means to be a committed part of the JMU community. You raise money for scholarships, you mentor our students, which is so important right now, and you find ways to connect your expertise with the future of our university through events like this one. So we are a better university because of you and because you're engaged. You've lived that experience of being a student on campus, and you then have gone on to demonstrate the value of a JMU degree. And we certainly see that represented by folks that are with us tonight. So you really are role models for our students, and I hope you will continue to help us to make JMU the best possible university we can be. Now, speaking of somebody who does that work of improving higher education literally every day, I now want to introduce tonight's moderator, Jonathan Page, the Director of Multicultural Affairs, Title VI Coordinator, and co-chair of the University Diversity Council at our partner, Longwood University. Jonathan has been an educator for over 20 years in both secondary and higher education settings. Jonathan earned his bachelor's degree from JMU and his master's degree from Longwood. See how all the pieces fit together here? He's a leader in diversity, equity, access, inclusion, and social justice, and has presented workshops, seminars, trainings, and keynotes across the country. Jonathan's passion for education is fueled by his desire to challenge students to engage in introspection by questioning their ideas, beliefs, values, assumptions, and biases as they become more familiar with and then understand, we hope, the lenses through which they view the world and as they become the citizen leaders of tomorrow. And on a personal note, I had the good fortune of visiting with Jonathan and his colleagues at Longwood not long ago, and I saw and heard firsthand the tremendous respect and admiration he has earned from his colleagues. And it was clearly very heartfelt. Everybody I talked to said how much they appreciate his leadership on that campus. And by the way, he's got a really cool first name, in case you didn't notice. So with that, Jonathan, thank you for being with us tonight. It's great to see you again. And I look forward to hearing the insights from tonight's panelists. Great to see you all.
Excellent. Thank you so much, President Alger, for that wonderful introduction. It has always been a pleasure, working with you as I have had the opportunity over the last few years. This is one of my favorite events to partake in. And I've been fortunate enough to have been serving as moderator from the very first time that we did our Black in the Day event. And so it's exciting for me to continue to make connections with alumni. It's interesting. I love the pre-show slideshow that was going on. I love the tagline that we have that, Dukes from day one, alumni for life. And that truly does embody, the spirit of who we are in this particular panel. And it's always fun coming home. So I'm so honored to be with you tonight, serving as moderator. It's very humbling, but I get excited to talk to fellow alumni, having them share their experiences, seeing the similarities and the commonalities, and really talking about how we've seen the institution grow. From me being there in the early 90s, seeing how it has evolved and developed into what it is now. It's an institution that is almost unrecognizable to what it was, and it's truly a testament to the leadership that we've had. And so I'm excited today again to be sharing the stage with you all. So I would like to begin by introducing the panel of our esteemed alumni. So I'm going to go around the horn and allow each one to introduce themselves. If you can share your name, your major, and the year you graduated. And as soon as we do that, then we'll whip around and begin our opening questions. So we'll start with Melody. Yep, you're on mute, Melody.
Okay, here I am. Good evening. I'm Melody Brooks. My major was psychology, and I'm a graduate of 1976.
Fantastic. And Reggie.
Okay, hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Reggie Hayes. I graduated, oh wow, a long time ago, in 1984. I'm a sociology and criminal justice major.
Fantastic. Glad to have you here with us, Reggie. And next up, we have Danielle.
All right, good evening, everyone. Danielle Bridgeforth, class of 97. I was a double major, political science and economics.
Excellent. Glad to have you with us, Danielle. And next we have Shelton.
Hi, I'm Shelton Johnson. I'm a class of 08 and I was a kinesiology major.
Excellent. Welcome, Shelton. And next we have Mecca.
My name is Mecca Baker. I majored in biology and I graduated in 2019.
Excellent. Glad to have you with us. And last but certainly not least, you're our most recent graduate, Kai.
Kai Parrott. Good evening, everybody. Kai Parrott, graduated 2021 in my sports management degree, BS in sports management.
Fantastic. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, we have a wealth of experiences, from the different majors and the different decades. So I'm excited to get us kicked off. So I'll start with the first question and we'll go in the order in which we attended, JMU for the first one. And again, we have a lot of questions coming in tonight. We're going to have some questions coming in from the attendees, the participants, today as well. So for the opening ones, I know if you're like me, you like to talk and you're going to share, stories that could last a lifetime and probably take a lifetime to tell. So for these questions, particularly for the first one, let's try to keep our stories to about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so we'll start off with Melody. What was your JMU experience like during your decade of the 70s? And what was your connection with the African-American community?
Okay, my experience, again, I'm the old school person here. So back in the 70s, it was very few of us on campus at the time. I remember entering JMU my first semester. I felt disconnected a little bit because personally, I hadn't gotten to the point of asking myself, is this exactly where I wanted to be? So I kind of felt around and looked around the campus at the time, as my first experience on campus grounds, and not seeing a lot of people who looked like me. But as over the years that I was there, the campus grew with more African American students. But my first year, I think I'm going to venture to say perhaps somewhere around 1% of the campus were people of color. But we all connected with each other in a way that we all supported each other. Some of us found reason to get together, where we roomed together, where we lived in suites together, to build a strong support system. I think we all had that in common at the time because there were so few of us on campus. But we did build a strong support system that we felt that we needed. We supported the Black athletes. We supported other Black students who were involved in other JMU programs and activities, and we supported each other. So we felt a strong need of connection, to build relationships among ourselves, to support each other, and to build a system for us to be successful on campus.
Excellent. Reggie, how about you? Same question. What was your JMU experience like, and how were you connected?
Well, I'll agree a great deal with Melody. I came in to JMU as a track athlete. I was recruited. My experience there, it was a humbling experience. However, it was different. When I was there, we had a total of maybe 250 African Americans. So we had to basically I had to do the same thing as first finding out who looks like me that's going to be at the school. And not only that, just it was a totally different environment. You're on a campus of maybe 9,000 students at the max, but when you look in the percentage of African Americans there, we were very small in numbers. So we had to build a unity and a community within who was attending the school. And I think the BSA was the Black Student Union, allowed us to build some togetherness, and we were really able to communicate with each other more. We really built a family there because there were more athletes than average students at that time. So, but we were able to build such a strong unity together. It made my experience there much more pleasant. It made my experience more willing to stay in school, as opposed to looking at the number of students that are there and wondering, do I fit in? Should I stay here? So there was a lot of reasons for you to leave. However, my experience there taught me more as a young man, and I think I've grown from it over the years.
Thank you, Reggie. Two words that you said really resonated with me: family and unity. Because when I came along, shortly thereafter, in the early '90s, that's very much the same sort of spirit that I encountered. That the Black community there on campus really came together. It was a support system. It was a network, and that really was instrumental, in really helping me to continue to develop and grow. So absolutely excellent. So Danielle, next up is you. I have to say that I am, unabashedly, biased. That the '90s clearly are the best decade. So hold it down for us, represent, and let them know what the truth is.
That's right. I was actually just talking to someone from the class of 1990 yesterday, and she also agreed with me about your sentiment, Jonathan. But but I can say, listening to what Melody and Reggie have said, that really the experience we had in the 90s was due in part to some of the challenges maybe that you all had, but I echo the same things and the same sentiments. When I got to campus in 1993, very warm, very supportive, very connected. During that time, the African-American population at JMU was significant. And so it was very easy to see others who look like me in most places, not a lot of people, but I could see a face, or I could see some Greek paraphernalia or something like that, that would kind of identify people. And so, I think that the sentiments that everybody else has expressed is the same thing that we experienced in the 90s. And our job was to try to make sure that that was continued for sure.
Absolutely. And so, Shelton, you get to kind of share with us. You certainly are the bridge between the 20th century and the 21st century. So being that first decade out, tell us what your experience was like.
First of all, the experience in itself was just overall really fun. But I will say this, we didn't have as big a population as you guys had in the 90s, but we still had a larger, I would say, population than you had in the 70s and 80s. And everybody knew everybody. I can't necessarily say that we all felt like family, but everybody knew everybody, and everybody definitely supported. If there was anything with the Black Student Association going on during that time, we all were there for the most part. We would show up, and it would be a big event anytime there was something put on, whether it was on or off campus. That's the main thing I remember about really connecting with the Black community, because it was just such a and whenever we all got together, it was always so much fun. It was like, man, we should do this more often. We always used to say that at the end of the events, like, why don't we do this more often? Because it would always be like once or twice a month, but that's when I think about really connecting with other people on campus who look like me. That's what really comes to mind.
Outstanding. Thank you, Shelton. Mecca, how about you? What was your experience like during the decade of the teens?
So I would definitely have to echo you and Danielle's talk about how the 90s are the best, because even during my time, we would talk about like, wow, like they did so much in the 90s, like even like going back through the history books in JMU. But my time was a lot different. My time kind of echoed what was going on in the country at the time. And so it was, a lot of social unrest. And so my time involved a lot of protests and marches and sit-ins and whatever we could, kind of put together. I very vividly remember the climate and what JMU was like after the 2016 election, and just the heaviness that had fallen, around the school kind of thing. And I think that was the time when a lot of us as Black students and students of color kind of really came together. It was, that was our time when we kind of started to pick up steam as far as like being outspoken and, just kind of letting administration know what was going on at the time and how we felt. We were very much close-knit. And so, especially those who were involved in CMIS orgs, and so myself included, I was involved with the Black Student Alliance and also Esteem Models, and just these orgs that were underneath CMIS, we had each other to lean on. And so that was what kind of made us stronger in a sense. And so we were very, very close with one another and just kind of supportive in general. There were about, I think 4% Black people on campus when I was there. So less than 1,000 students. And I think there were about 20,000 students on campus at the time. So yeah, we were like a small dot on a piece of paper, but we were there and we were close with one another. So I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. And again, Kai, can you tell us about the most recent experiences there on campus?
Yeah, so my path was a little bit different. So I ended up just graduating in 2021, but I was on campus from 2014 to 2017. So my experience was very similar to Mecca's. When I got on campus, there was a lot of political situations that were going on. The Black Lives Matter movement had just started. And so people were trying to figure out where that was heading, what that was really entailing, what the message was. And I was recruited to play baseball, and I can remember, being the only African American, being the only Black man within the baseball locker room, within majority of my classes, the parties I attended. I can remember the chatter that would always be going around within the white community of, what is BLM? What does that mean, Kai? What does that mean? What does that really, what's the message? Don't all lives matter, things of that nature. And it was tough. It was tough because you don't want to stay compliant to any measure of that, and at the same time you don't want to stick out as a sore thumb. And like I was saying, there wasn't many of us on campus at the time, so everyone, like Sheldon said, everyone knew everybody. I mean, there's probably myself in Spotswood Hall on Bluestone was myself, and there was my friend Alex Brooks that was downstairs, and we were the only two within the dorm. So we went everywhere together, right? Outside my baseball activities. But I mean, outside of that, it's always been heaven on earth. That's something I'm never going to change my sentiment about that and my conversations about that.
Excellent. It's interesting, Mecca, that you talk about, the period of social unrest and protests and marches, and the challenges. And I've certainly had the benefit of seeing, the evolution of students becoming more, socially active, really developing that activist spirit. And a lot of that is in response to some of the climate, the culture, what's going on in the larger society, because we know that Madison was a microcosm, of the larger world. But I think as, African-American students, we all, faced some challenges that we had to overcome. So let's speak to that for a moment or two. What were some of the challenges that you faced as a minority student at a PWI, and how did you address and handle those challenges? And I'll open this up. We won't go in any particular order, but as you feel so moved, kind of share your thoughts with us.
Well, Jonathan, I can respond. There were many challenges for me as a student during the 80s, and I remember being assistant president to the NAACP. Many of the challenges that we faced were through many of our white counterparts at the school, because many of them didn't want many of the Black students there. Many of them, we faced a great deal of racism and social unrest as a student going to class, as a student living in the resident hall. So we had to band more together as Black students, and that's why I use the word as family, because when you're in an environment where many of you are not wanted, you have to be able to understand why you're there. Many of us was there to get an education. Many of us were there to, participate in sports. But however, we had to begin to look at why we're here, why we're receiving money, but yet we're being treated as if like we're nothing. So I recall us having a meeting with the president at that time, Dr. Kerry, at his home. And we had to lay out all the issues that we were facing at JMU that particular year. It was difficult. We had things that were written at that time in the breeze, but as students, we truly banded together, and I think being able to do that allowed many of us to persevere, and it allowed us to really take a stand at the university to say, hey, if you guys are going to treat us like this as athletes or as people in general, we won't have to participate. We don't have to do what it is you're asking us to do, because you're treating us as if we don't exist. We've had some good times and bad times, but I can honestly tell you at that particular time when we all stood up as a group, the school began to respond to us in a totally different manner.
To add to what Reggie was saying, I guess prior to your years, Reggie, we didn't have a person like you, Jonathan. We could have benefited more if we had someone like you. The only thing that we had, I think the athletes may have had their coaches who may have supported them or who they may have been able to talk to. We had deans of schools, but we didn't have a person like a Jonathan. That is why during the 70 years, we established the Black Student Alliance to give us an organization that could help us maneuver through the years, that could be a support system, that could be a connection between us and the school, and all. But I felt that we were not really treated well or not treated bad, but we were there. We were there, and I guess the expectation was, okay, you're there, you're supposed to be just like any other student. Well, it was difficult for us to be just like, because there were so few of us. There was a lack of diversity that in not only in student body, but also in the professors. And again, we established the Black Student Alliance. I was one of the early presidents, and we knew what we needed, and we approached President Carrier at the time as well about our concerns. And we felt, and sadly to say, the young lady that was of recent years that talk about protests and sit-ins and stuff, that we've come full circle with that, because at the time we also felt that we had to protest the school to tell them there needed to be more diversity on campus. We needed more African American students. We needed African American professors. I had a white professor teaching me African American history. And it was difficult. I had nobody that I could turn to talk to, looked like me, who could understand some of the situations that I was going through. So we asked, for more students. We asked for more professors, and all. So it was a very difficult time, but we understood where we were and what we needed. Again, it was a very difficult time in this country, as it was, of recent years here. I talked to, the radio station. There was one radio station. And at the end of the radio station, they played Dixie. And the horse whinnied at the end of Dixie and said, "The South shall rise again." Well, nobody on campus thought, at the school thought about what that meant to African American students who were on campus when they did that. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that's what we heard every day.
Right.
And that made it difficult. There was no one for us to turn to and say, "Hey, this doesn't make us feel welcomed here." Mm-hmm. for this to happen. So yeah, we could have benefited from a person like Jonathan at the time.
Well, I tell you, hearing the stories, folks from that decade of the 70s, truly just epitomizes strength and resilience. And I know that none of us would be able to be here today were it not for people like you, Melody, who really truly persevered, who paved the way, who said, this is what we need, having those conversations, and you as well, Reggie, having conversations with Dr. Carey, that this is what we need to do. This is the direction that we need to go, because without you, I know I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. I know, a lot of us, wouldn't either. So thank you for that. That really meant a lot. I really enjoyed hearing that story. Anyone else want to chime in and kind of give that perspective? All right, cool. So one of the things that, as Melanie was talking, it really made me think about resources. And, none of us ever, succeeds by ourselves. We've always had the benefit of people that we could lean on, be it family, friends, whomever. And so I kind of want to think about and share for a moment, who are those people at Madison that were instrumental in your success, those resources that you were able to lean on to get you through? I mean, I think of myself, and this is, where I get a chance to name drop a little bit, because, I know I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the likes of Byron Bullock and Diane Strawbridge in the Office of Multicultural Student Services, Antonio Thomas in admissions. And then I had faculty members who kind of always took me in and was like, look, no, this is what you need to do. So if it weren't for the Dr. Gabbins and the Dr. Griffins, the Dr. Walkers, the Bryce Finches, the Dr. Usuansas of campus, I think I would have been just a lost brother walking around campus. So for you all in your time, what were those resources that you were able to take advantage of? Who were those people that you leaned on to really get you through?
I definitely have to say Channing McGuffin. When I was there, he was the branch manager at Commonwealth Bank, right under what used to be D Hall. I don't even know if D Hall is still there or not. I heard it was gone now, but that's where the bank was. And I didn't know nothing about credit cards. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. He sat me down, taught me all of that, and then told me they were having a career fair on campus, told me to put together a resume with whatever work experience I had at the time, which was really next to nothing. And it told me to go to the career fair, submit my resume, make sure I wear a suit, all these things that, he taught me. And so for this question, I just really, I think the resources that I think really, if I didn't know him, if I wouldn't have went out of my way to go speak to him that day, I would have never learned all these things. I know I'm just speaking again from my time on campus. I just wish that there was something that was more streamlined to help with the exiting process of JMU, where I know a lot of guys who I played football, but I know a lot of guys who were teammates of mine who really struggled those first 2 or 3 years after JMU with trying to land on their feet with fortunately, I wasn't in that situation, but I know a lot of guys who were. And if there was something on campus to kind of help with the transition into what I call the real world, that would have been really beneficial. And again, to really just focus in on African American community too, with that aspect, because it would just be it would be a huge help.
Yeah. So Kevin White, assistant athletic director at JMU. So something, both of my parents went to JMU, so he was actually a teammate of my father's. My dad played football, he played football, both there. So when he was on campus, he was assistant AD, I was a freshman. And he definitely, there were times that when you're an athlete on campus, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing in the classroom, that you need to do better. And Mr. Wright definitely got on my tail that I needed to do better. And like Melody said, when you have someone that looks like you, that's in a position of power, you can relate to that a lot more. You can respect that a lot more. You can listen to them a lot more, because it's a little tougher, right? When others are getting on you, but they don't have the same challenges that you do. And Mr. White sat me down and was like, look, there's no excuse, period. There's no excuse why you're doing X, Y, and Z. I did X, Y, and Z, and I made that adjustment. So Mr. White definitely was extremely influential within my development at JMU.
Outstanding.
I have to say Valerie Gant and Siobhan Moore. I have to say those two because they were both involved with Siemens, of course. Ms. Gant was the director and everything, but the two of them were very pivotal in kind of guiding students through what was going on at JMU during my time. And I appreciate them because even though they were kind of getting pushback from administration, whoever, was above them and everything, they still managed to kind of be that rock that students needed when we felt like we couldn't go to anyone. And even currently, I have to say, Dr. Casonia Johnson, she came to JMU after I left JMU, but we still met each other, and she has been so pivotal. She has been the person that I needed when I was at JMU. And so I thank her for that.
Excellent.
Jonathan, I think for me, in speaking about that, I think Dr. Wallace, who was one of the professors that we had that really allowed many of us to come to her in our time of need. But I can honestly tell you that there were really about 3-4 people who worked at JMU that were the directors of the Black Student Alliance or the Black Student Union, but Larry Rogers, George Harris, Calvin Harris, and Deborah Tompkins, although she was on the alumni board. I think the 4 of them really prepared many of us as students for a better life after graduation. The alumni really stepped in at the time in the 80s to make sure that you as a student will be better prepared when you graduate. They developed a network system for many of us when we were graduating to seek various careers. And they would come back as alum to make sure that each of us would participate in the alumni programs that they would put on every year just to prepare us. So when you're ready to graduate, here are the major steps that you will need to do in order to be successful. So I know many of those people, and then even Forrest Parker, having an opportunity to work in admissions. So there were a number of students who had graduated, but they stayed there or came back to work there to really make sure that every Black student would have an opportunity to go on and prosper and be successful when they leave JMU. So in using that word close-knit family, I am still close with all of these people today, you know, because we really looked after each other and they looked after us. So if it had not been for many of them, I couldn't tell you if I would have graduated at JMU or not. But I think they were really the catalyst for many of the students at that time in the 80s to make sure that we all finished and completed what we started.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to share?
Well, I'll just jump in because I think it's important to, you know, speak those names. Many of the people that you mentioned, Jonathan, certainly Dr. Gabin, Byron Bullock, Diane Strawbridge, Dr. Rice Finch. I spent so much time in her office. Oh my goodness. But in addition to that, Tasha Daniels, she was director of multicultural student services. I was actually on the hiring committee that brought Dr. Daniels there. And that was very helpful because and that was one of the things that, to Melanie's point, you know, there was some protests my freshman and sophomore year too, because that's when affirmative action was coming under a lot of ridicule, you know, in the early 90s, looking at what was going on climate-wise in terms of the end of Reagan's term and before Clinton was elected. And so, you know, Black Freshman Weekend was getting phased out. And so I remember Maya Angelou was on campus our sophomore year, and we were protesting, and Maya Angelou literally was like, look, I don't know what y'all young sisters and brothers are doing, but y'all keep doing it. You know, she gave us a shout out from the stage to say, I see y'all and keep doing it. But with Tasha Daniels coming in, that allowed Dr. Bullock to be able to get freed up, to get elevated to be a VP so that he could do some other things and not just be locked into what was going on in the multicultural office. And of course, Art Dean as well, who's still on campus to this day, doing some awesome things, and Karen Young. They were people who helped me, in addition to current students at the time. And that's one thing too, that was an important link. I don't remember things like this when I was a student. Associating with alumni. Maybe it was there and I just kind of was a college student and didn't know. But I will say that when I was a freshman, I had junior and senior connections through like the Big Sister Little Sister program that the Lambda Chi chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated had. I also had two people from my high school, Francis Johnson and Mike Howard, who were at JMU. And so when I got to JMU, I already knew some people from Hopewell High School they knew me and I knew them. And so those current students were also an important link to help you kind of navigate through those years.
Absolutely. So, you know, when we talk about sort of social life, you know, because we know that, you know, we were all at Madison because we were studious and it was all about the degree, and we all were going to graduate with 4.0s and move on to stellar careers. And so we didn't have time to socialize. But if we did, you know, what were some of those clubs and orgs that kind of were instrumental to you feeling that sense of connection, that sense of belonging, that, you know, even though there may have been so few of us in this sea of a PWI, you look at it now, we're 20,000 students, you know, so as you pointed out, Mecca, you know, just kind of being one spot on a page, you know, in this vast map. So what were some of the clubs, organizations, what were some of the outlets that you had that really kept you grounded and connected?
Well, during my time, Jonathan, the only sorority on campus was Delta Sigma Theta, and that was it. But the Black Student Alliance fulfilled a lot of our needs. We would sponsor dances during homecoming for Black students. And occasionally we ourselves would throw a dorm party and fill a trash can with grain alcohol and fruit punch and spin some records and dance. But that was it. The school, I will say this, the school did fund some activities in the sense that we had maybe a well-known group come on campus to do a concert. We had I don't know if anybody is old enough to remember Rufus Thomas and the dance, The Funky Chicken. We had that on campus. That was a big thing for us at the time. And we did have speakers. We had Julian Bond come and speak one time, and Nikki Giovanni. So there were a few things, but the Black Student Alliance fulfilled a lot of our needs. As I headed toward my junior and senior year, there began to form another fraternity and sororities on campus. So things began to develop and fulfill some of the other, social needs.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, and I'll echo Melody because I know when I was there, we did have the deltas. We had the deltas, we had AKAs, but we only had Qs and alphas. But the BSA basically allowed us to do so much more socially. We had various sporting events that everyone would participate in. We had a regular cookout for all of the upperclassmen and incoming freshmen. I know as I was getting more into my junior year, they developed the Black Freshman Weekend, which increased the number of Black students to come to JMU. I remember my first year going to a social, and many of the parties that we had at JMU were at the stadium. It was like just one room. So when you consider the number of students that was there, we didn't have space at the gym or anything like that, because again, it was only about 250 of us. So when you looked at what we did and what we did socially to have fun, it was great being there, because you knew everyone that was going to attend the party. You didn't have any issues that you were going to consider having, because everyone knew everybody. So the social life at JMU was really great. I mean, I have to admit that. I mean, it got better each and every year. But the good thing is, we would do the same thing. There was always beer, there was always alcohol, there was always people doing things kind of going against the grain. But overall, I think anyone that attended JMU, their social life was great, and all it did was basically get better as you got older as a student as well. So you knew what to do and what not to do.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned that, Reggie, because as I'm thinking about, us in the 90s, and it seemed like there was always a party in PC Ballroom. There was always something going on. One of the clubs or organizations was always hosting it, or there was something going on in the dorms. But it's interesting because I was mentioning that to some current students when I happened to be on campus not too long ago. And I was like, oh yeah, we used to have a big time in PC Ballroom. And they're like, what's that? And so when you talk about feeling old, at that moment, I was just ready to grab my hat and coat and just kind of walk to the parking lot. But just, even going to Players, downtown, going to the club, Walter Jackson, the late, great Walter Jackson, my brother, as the DJ, you're right. There was just that connection. There was that social life that we had fun. So we knew how to study, but we also knew how to play. So what was that experience like for some of the rest of you? Because we know athletes know how to party. Don't try to be shy. like you don't know. All of a sudden y'all got quiet and started looking away.
I think so anybody listening, I played ball with his cousin Andre Perry, and then I also know Kevin White too. Kevin White sat down and gave me some straightening one time. I forgot to mention that on the last. But yeah, we had the over there festival. That was where the ballroom was, where they would have parties on campus. And then off campus, it was always, like you said, somebody's apartment, or it was High Lawn. I think they changed the title of it now, Rocktown. I can't remember, but it was always, like you said, Friday and Saturday night, there was always somewhere for us to go. And like you said, like I said, all each other. So we knew if it was a party. And it's amazing to me, like now, because you got the smartphones and everything. When I was there, smart, like you were considered rich if you had an iPhone. The iPhone had just came out towards my last year. So like the way we had Yahoo AIM, but everybody knew where the party was though. It's just, if you showed up and you get there and it's packed, and it was a good time. We had a lot of fun. Like you said, we went against the grain some for sure. But we all had a good time though. It was always fun.
So you just made me feel old, brother, because I didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have cell phones back then. So, I mean, come on. Wow, thanks.
Computer.
Yeah, no laptop, no cell phone, none of that. It's crazy.
Exactly. Going to print off a paper in the College of Business building.
For sure.
And I had key punch computers.
When I first got there, I had to go to the computer lab with a floppy disk. By the time I graduated in 2008, that's when I remember my first teammate. The first time I saw an iPhone was one of my teammates had it. Justin Barnes, he had one. He had a brand new iPhone, and we were like, man, that's nice. Because before that, we all had just had flip phones, and like you said, then while I was there, we went from floppy disks to flash drives. You know, so it was. I saw the progression through my 4 years. Yeah,
that's all right. It's too late, brother. You made us feel old. That's all,
exactly. It's a
it's too late. It's too late.
But you know, I
Dude,
think
you were lucky with a floppy disk. We had key punch cards.
You're taking it way too far back, Melody. You're taking it way too far back. You know, I think the thing that really helped us was, you know, the weeks that everybody had. So like all the sororities, all the fraternities. I mean, by the time I got there, you know, all the organizations were, well, at least all of the Pan-Hellenic, the Divine Nine organizations were represented, except for IOTAs. I know since then there have been some other, you know, the Latino and Asian sororities and fraternities have come on campus too, but that helped. You know, everybody had a week. You're talking about SMO, Sisters Minority Outreach, BSA, CGS, you know, all of those organizations. And the thing that was cool is that everybody supported everybody. So everybody went to all the parties, everybody went to all the events, all of the, you know, the presentations, because, you know, we knew we had to support each other to make sure that we did it, that we kept having those things. And also, you know, UPB was also very responsive to us. And there were people who worked in UPB office to try to help. So like my senior year, Tribe Called Quest was there. And that was a big deal. But we also had, like I mentioned, Maya Angelou, Cornell West came while I was there. So we definitely had a lot of people from the student level, as well as from the administrative level, who were trying to bring events and people and names that were going to engage the African-American population.
I think what's amazing in listening to everyone, I wish everyone could experience what Melody and I were able to experience when JMU was only on one side of campus. You didn't have all of what you have right now. When I was there at JMU. I mean, people used to complain about walking up to up the hall to D Hall, you know, and D Hall was the only cafeteria that we had. And then, you know, we may have had something upstairs in the student union, but it was rare, you know. But in looking at JMU now compared to how it would have been for us socially versus what we have right now, I'd rather keep what we did, because it allowed us to really learn much about ourselves as people. It allowed us to endure much of what we had to endure all together. And I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I love going back to JMU now, but when I look at how JMU was as when I was there as a student, I don't think I would have ever wanted to trade it, because it really shaped me and who I am, you know, not just as an athlete, but as a Black man, because JMU taught so many outstanding people, and so many people have gotten a great deal of success just attending that school. So I love listening to everyone, because from the 70s and 80s, when students are talking to me, they say, oh man, you was back there. I'm like, you would not believe how JMU was when I was back there. But when I look at JMU today, students go there like, oh man, yeah, we got this, we got that. You know, I'm like, yeah, but we didn't always have that. You know, I mean, JMU was just like one place for you to go on one side of campus. That's it.
Absolutely. You know, we always had each other. But it's interesting to kind of hear these stories, you know. And when I think about the way, as you pointed out, Reggie, the way that Madison is today. I remember when I graduated, and I was kind of going, even when I was an undergrad, and I would, because I'm from the DC area, and so I would go home, and I had my JMU paraphernalia on, and people would look at it like, JMU, what's that? You mean you go to George Mason? No. Oh, what do you go to James Mason? No, that's an actor. I go to James Madison. They're like, where's that? Harrisonburg, Virginia. Where's that? Shut up. So, but it's interesting now that, Madison now casts a long shadow, that we are known nationally, because I remember I've had the opportunity to travel, and I was on a plane once, and I had the misfortune of sitting next to a dude from North Dakota State. I had to listen to him for 4 hours, but I go places now and I'm like, oh, I went to JMU. Oh my gosh, James Madison, we know about this program and that program and this. So it's really interesting to see how it's evolved, and kind of with that in mind, it kind of leads me to my next question. How did JMU prepare you for success and to compete not only in the job market, but in life?
Yeah, I'll take that to start off, Jonathan. I think I was actually talking to one of my ex-teammates about this, just how well JMU did set myself up and everyone else up for the job market. Just be prepared for interviews as a whole, being answering interviews correctly, being prepared with the correct attire. I remember in our sports management courses, one of my other mentors, Dr. Naza, was such a stickler on how to properly dress business professionally versus business casual. So just the differences between that and just obviously being on time, being prepared, a lot of these things that you realize when you get down to real that people aren't really aware of. And I think that was shocking to me, because JMU just hammered that into our head. Like, this is how you act, this is how you dress, this is how you perform, this is how it's done. And that really helped me within the interviews that right as soon as I got my degree that I entered.
I would say definitely, I'll add on to that, time management and communication. I mean, they, like you said, it was drilled into us, not only being at JMU, but also being a football player too. I mean, I still to this day keep a calendar, and like everything is like my day, everything's scheduled out, and learning to effectively communicate with people, and handling things up front, taking challenges head on, things that I didn't have in my toolbox before entering JMU, but that I left with, and I'm forever grateful for.
Again, I grew up in a different time, and my experience at JMU, being in a predominantly white institution, that's the story of my life and my career life, is being among majority white coworkers, and having to compete against them and climb that career ladder through that competition. And I that's just been the story of my education and my career life. Is that's where I was. I never really I didn't go to an HBCU. I never worked in a workplace that was all black or whatever. It was majority white, and I was many times either among the few or the only one, the only black or the only black woman where I worked, and I had to maneuver and navigate my career through that.
I would say, Jonathan, time management was probably the most important thing that I learned. Time management and effective communication. Working in corrections for 18 years, JMU really prepared me through my internship work and getting me to see things from a different perspective in that field. And then many of my professors who were white prepared me and letting me know, and going into this field, many of the people that I will be working with and serving will look like me. So how would I make a difference stepping into this field? They were throwing questions at me that I'd never asked myself. And being a first generation in my family, to go to college and to graduate, because 9 times out of 10, one in 7 of us, will probably be incarcerated when you're looking at Black males. So they taught me a lot more about myself. And it was funny because Mr. Brown, who was a white professor, really gave me more experience in understanding how the real world was going to be once I graduated. So, but he really taught me a lot about time management and effective communication.
I definitely echo the communication piece. I actually went directly into law school following JMU, so I didn't go into the workforce, but I definitely felt like I was ready. And one of the reasons why I spent so much time in Dr. Bryce Finch's office is because she was editing papers and things like that to help me be able to write well. And even though law school deconstructs everything you learned before that and makes you think differently, I did feel like I had the nuts and bolts of what I needed in terms of how to communicate, both orally as well as in writing, to be able to compete and to do well in law school and to go right into that from undergrad. So definitely having those connections with the professors especially really helped to prepare me.
I would say networking. JMU taught me how to network. I got my first internship through a friend of a friend who went to JMU. I met my now mentor through a biochemistry professor I had. So just kind of networking, and you never know who you're going to meet. And that's the thing about JMU. You never know who went there or who goes there now, and what they can kind of offer you or who they can introduce you to. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Excellent. And so I would be remiss, it's homecoming. I would be remiss if I didn't ask all of us or all of you, what are some of your fondest memories, being on the arc? We know homecoming is a time we all get together, we sit under the tents, we tailgate, we tell lies, so what are some of those fond memories that you have and some of those stories that have grown expansively over the decades? Uh-oh, see, I must have asked a good one because everybody's like, well, I don't think I can tell that story.
I think for me, because I was one of the first Black alumni presidents, I think homecoming for me is truly, one, it was truly an honor to be the Black alumni president, but having the opportunity to see and meet new JMU students every year, having the opportunity to see how the school has grown every year, having the opportunity to really see just how much growth the college had in itself, because you were going to always have fun at homecoming. I mean, homecoming is just one of the things I come back for every year. And I come back primarily just to see the number of African-American students that have graduated. I always, ask questions about what is our enrollment every year. Do the students have that same unity that we once had when I was there, or do they have that unity that the 90s had, and on and on and on. But I think for me, homecoming is just that joyous time for all of us to come back and reminisce about everything that we've had a chance to do. I can't speak for everyone, but I know any and everyone who attended JMU, homecoming is just a love of family. That's how I look at it. I mean, that's truly our family time. And I share that with my track team members. I share that with members on the football team when I was there. I share that with members of the resident hall that I stayed in. So any and everyone that I know, I try to spread myself around, because, JMU showed me a lot of love, and I just try to make sure I show it back in return.
Absolutely. I love that thought. It's family time.
So I haven't had many homecomings as an alum yet, but when I was a student, one of the things we would always make sure we went to the step show, because that was the thing to do. You have to dress up because everyone in the Black community is going to be there. But we would also, of course, like parties or whatever. But one of the things my friends and I would do, we would do like sober rides. So we had this big group chat with a bunch of like all Black people or Black adjacent. And so if you were Black, we would add you so you can connect with us. And one of the things we would do is kind of you drop your phone number and how much you would charge for rides, and you just go around and you give people rides to and from parties or back home safely. And we would make a couple $100 homecoming weekend every year. So that was fun.
Sounds like you had a homemade Uber and Lyft.
We did.
Bootleg. That's called entrepreneurship.
Well, we didn't have that far to go for any rides because as Reggie said, we were all on one side of the track. Homecoming was one thing that I used to look forward to. It's been many years since I've been back, actually. I think the last time I was there, someone asked me, "Dang, how old are you? You must have kids our age." And so the kids keep getting younger and younger. So, and many of the people who I went to school with, who I still stay in touch with, it's again, kids can get. I have a niece who just graduated from JMU, and my sister's graduated from JMU. My brother and my husband and brother-in-law graduated from JMU. So we're a JMU family. So we still kind of stay in touch, though.
Yeah, very similar to Melody in terms of being a JMU family. I haven't been back recently. I need to keep myself way more accountable, and I definitely plan on doing that, especially next homecoming. I know Paul is definitely going to make me.
You just left. What are you talking about?
I know. So I was on campus like 17. So, but I need to be back and really get involved with the community currently. But anyways, back to the family. I mean, my mother was basketball. My father played football. My cousin played football with Shelton. I had another cousin that was in the 90s as well. And my cousin just graduated too. So it's definitely purple and gold through and throughout. And that's been since I was like a toddler. So homecoming in that aspect has always been a big deal. I mean, just sit back and making that drive 2 hours from Northern Virginia down to Harrisonburg when I was 3-4 years old. So that was always a big family deal, and it still is to this day.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna give this real quick homecoming story. I was on the fence about whether or not, when you said it, like immediately 100 bad stories came to mind, and then I was like, okay, this is one that I can share. It's relatable to Meccas, and it's still kind of bad, but it's okay. It's clean enough. So you remember the year at the block party when the police had to come and break it up and all? Yeah, see, Kai, yeah, exactly. So I wasn't there. Let me say that. I was already working with the federal government and everything, and I was coming back for homecoming. But I knew a lot of the guys who were still on the team. And so I called up a couple of them. I was like, yeah, I'm about 30 minutes out. And they were all like, man, Shelton, come get us. And then one of my best friends, he was already around the corner, had left. The police had came and was breaking everything up or whatever. So I couldn't find him, and I end up like not smack dab in the middle, but I saw all the smoke and everything. And he came and jumped in my truck. And when he jumped in my truck, I just, hurry up, scared off, whatever. We drove over to his place. I was crashing on his couch for homecoming weekend. And then we get there, we pull up, and it's 3 other guys who jumped in the back of my truck. You talk about picking people up. Like, I didn't even know they had jumped in the back of my truck to get out of the smoke and all that stuff. So that was probably the funniest and wildest homecoming story that I was a part of.
Yeah, you take the cake, you win. That's it. We had a question that popped up in our chat from one of the attendees today. And I think it's a really good question for us to start to think about, and particularly for those of you who are some of the newer alumni. What do you see as the future for African-American students at JMU?
Mecca, you want to go ahead and take that first, or you
go ahead.
I think that's an interesting question. I think it can only be bright. And I think this conversation helps that, because I'll say when you first get into JMU, the advice that everyone here is giving, I would definitely take that to heart as soon as possible, such as the mentors that you can get involved with, the communities that you can get involved with, because whatever school you go to, even as JMU, it's a predominant PWI, whatever school it is, there always is a Black community that you can get involved with. You just have to find it, and you have to try and get involved with it as soon as possible. And when you do that, you can only, again, it can only help you be as happy as possible. So it's definitely bright. You just have to go out and like I said, network as soon as possible. That's only gonna help.
So from hearing what you have shared, Melody, and you as well, Reggie, I see JMU, it'll still be a PWI. I see that. But I also see, of course, as it grows in size, more Black people will also come. So I definitely see that. It's hard for me to hear stories about the 70s and the 80s and so on and so forth, and not think that students will still be protesting years from now. And so that reality of it it's hard for me to not see that. And I don't want to see that. I don't want students to have to protest and do A, B, and C, but it's hard for me to say that that won't be the case because of the stories that we're hearing years and years and years. And it like you said, it comes full circle, like you said, Melody. And I don't know. I don't know where we'll be as a community, but I can definitely say that we'll be tight knit as we've been throughout the years. We'll find each other like we always do, and we're gonna have fun regardless, like we always do. So yeah, I definitely see that continuing.
I echo you, Mecca, because I think the future of the students will really depend on the alum. We as alumni, we still have to encourage and support many of our students to come to JMU, because I still have students who don't know where JMU is in Harrisonburg. I work at the high school now, and I try to educate as many students as I can about James Madison University. My wife graduated from JMU as well, and she finished in '86. But I know when my daughter was being recruited, my daughter chose not to come to JMU only because JMU had gotten bigger, and she felt like she would be lost attending JMU based on how it was when I took her there when she was younger. So I think much of the student's future really truly depends on how we provide that education to them as alums who attended JMU. I think because I can see our kids, I can see students continuing to march. I can see students continuing to protest and fight for what they believe is right. But I think we as alum, we have a responsibility to support them as best we can. And we really need to begin to talk and educate people about the experience of James Madison University. Many times as alum, you would graduate and you may not come back. I've talked to alums who graduated years ago and they've never been back to JMU because of that one or two or bad experiences that they've had. But as an alum, you have to be able to go back and provide your experience so you can encourage other people to attend. You have to be able to allow them and let them know that despite whatever may have occurred at JMU when you were a student, this school has grown tremendously, and we need to get more Black students there now. It's going to continue to always be a white university. I mean, no question. However, I would love to see JMU have as many as 7,000 or 8,000 students, African-American students there roaming the campus. I think when we begin to increase our enrollment, JMU can only get better because our athletes show it every day. Our athletes show it every year, you know, whether it's in football, track and field, baseball, whatever the sport may be, you know, we as African Americans, we always show up, but we have a very small population of students that's being recruited. So we have to do a better job of encouraging high schools and others to have people come to James Madison University. And academics is crucial, because when I attended, you had to have a strong GPA to get in. So that hasn't changed. So, you know, but I think the alums, we have a responsibility too of really trying to get more students there.
Yeah, I certainly agree with what you're saying, Reggie. And I also think, you know, we have to leverage our voice as alum to talk to and engage the, you know, the administration as well. I know a couple of years ago, we had, you know, a big panel, a big discussion with President Alger about this very thing, you know, for them to understand how important it is, you know, that JMU see that we're holding them accountable to make sure they keep recruiting and to make sure that those resources and the financial allocation is made so that we can have a very diverse school. And so I think it comes from both ways. You know, we do need to recruit. And I was just on campus last month because I came back for Dr. Gabbin's due their building dedication. And, you know, I was walking around campus and just ran into a family, a young African-American young man who was on his, you know, a tour. He and his mom and his dad, and, you know, just made a point to stop and say, hello, hey, I graduated, you know, and just talk to them because it's very evident the lack of color on campus now. And so I felt like I need to make sure that I reach out to him as an alum to just kind of say, hey, there are Black people who went here. We had a good experience. Let me reach out. But we definitely have to make sure. And I know the BAC, I know many of the Divine Nine have scholarships. And so it's also important for us to support those things so that we can leverage financially because whether we like it or not, money still talks. And so we've got to be able to pull our resources so that we can come to the table and we can leverage and they can see, okay, we're going to listen to this group because they're not just talking, but they're also giving and they're supporting and they're starting scholarships and things like that so that we can make sure that that legacy continues. So it's a multifaceted, multidimensional kind of approach.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, I'm just going to butt in as the president because I want to say, it is important for us to get involved in what you guys are talking about. So BAC can't be sustainable without your participation. And that comes from new alums and from older alums. We need to start getting involved and engaged. But we've been engaged on campus with the current students, and I would encourage you to help us with some of these mentorship programs that we're currently doing. So when we send out information, please engage in the mentoring programs. And just, you know, come on campus as much as possible because our current Black students are looking for alums. We're 5,000 strong plus, and hopefully we can grow. So I would just encourage, please get involved as much as possible and be engaged.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Paula. The BAC does, you know, phenomenal work. I've enjoyed, you know, being affiliated with it. You know, for the last several years. And it's just good catching up with people. Again, it's the networking, which is so critically important. So, you know, thank you, Paula, for your leadership. I expect a lot of good things as we continue to go forward. But kind of along those same lines, you know, again, we'd be remiss as, you know, I like to consider ourselves not old, we're seasoned. We have some experience. So with that in mind, you know, that comes with, you know, hard-earned, you know, wisdom, you know, from some of those challenging times and experiences. So what advice would you then give to prospective students if we're talking about really aiding in those recruitment efforts? You know, what advice would you give to prospective students, and even what advice would you give to current students, you know, to help aid their success or to certainly encourage them to continue to push and to strive?
I would say make the best of it. This is your chance. You know, you're going to go through these 4 years very quickly. start thinking seriously about, your life goals and where you want to go. Get as much out of this college experience as you can, and get to know people and develop relationships that are going to be with you throughout lifetime.
Very good advice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Melody. To the incoming students, I would definitely say the same thing. Make the best of it. Couldn't say it any better than Melody said. And for the current students, don't doubt yourself. You are smarter and you can do so much more oftentimes than you actually think you can when you push yourself. And don't doubt yourself. Just go, like I said, take the things that you learned and apply them, and keep the faith, work hard, and things will work out for you.
Yeah, I agree with Shelton and Melody as well. Be yourself is probably the number one thing I'm going to say. Be yourself and be comfortable in your own skin, walking around campus. Because like Danielle said, there's not many of you. There's not many of us on campus. So there might be times where your confidence might be hit when you're trying to fit in, or if you're trying to find your community within the school. But there's people that are there to help you. There are always going to be people that are there to help you, that want to see you succeed, especially within the Black community. So just be yourself and be comfortable and be confident. Stay confident.
I like the point that you made there, Kai, is that there's always someone there to help you. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough is, when you're in an environment, and as Paula said, there, 5,000 plus, on campus, but when you're in a sea of 22,000 students, you often feel like you're alone. And so, making sure that you understand that there are people, there are resources, that are there to support you. You simply have to kind of reach out for it. But I even see it in my own work in higher education at my institution. While the resources are there, students don't always know how to access them. So how can we be more transparent, particularly with, incoming students as they're visiting, on diversity day or just any old visit? What are we doing to make sure that they are connected with resources on campus from the beginning of matriculation through to the moment they make their deposit, through the moment they walk across that stage and earn their degree? So I think that's going to be critically important, is, know that you're not alone. There is someone, there. We just have to get the two connected.
I think one of the things that I learned when I got there, I had to embrace racism. I had to embrace it, not from a violent standpoint, but I had to embrace it from an engagement standpoint. You have to be able to stand your ground, and you have to understand that life is what you make it. If you use that fuel to be positive in your endeavor as far as what you're seeking to do, you will achieve any and every goal you want. So for me, I didn't sweat the small stuff, and that's what I encourage students to do. Don't sweat the small stuff, and understand that life has challenges, but it's what you make it. And if you choose to and if you are a positive person, then you're going to choose to be successful in whatever it is you want to do. But not sweating the small stuff for me, and being able to embrace a lot of what was coming at me from a racism and a prejudice perspective, allowed me to gain the strength to do and to graduate and be who I am. So that would be my encouragement for a lot of students. That's how you move forward.
Good advice. Thank you, Reggie.
I would say to current and prospective students to give yourself grace. You are going to grow so much in such a short amount of time. Not only are you a Black person at a PWI and you have to deal with that every time you walk outside of your room, but you are also there to be studious and to actually get your degree. And so just the challenges that come with both of those things. You're not only a student, you are a Black student in a space where you may be the only Black student sometimes. And so just those two combined, just don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself grace and remember to just rest.
That is fantastic advice, Mecca. You're right, because particularly in the climate that we're in now, you're still in the midst of a pandemic, still, economic crises, political and civil unrest. Give yourself grace, and that's something you're absolutely right. That I don't know we give ourselves permission to do, and that oftentimes we understand how to do. So no, I think that's very timely advice.
Yeah, and I was going to say something very similar. Mecca, great point is that, when I think about my time at JMU, I had a lot of fun in college, and I made these lifelong relationships. And so to be able to know how to balance that, and I especially think with the current generation, I know I see this with a lot of my cousins who are like millennials, they are like so hard on themselves that they don't realize that they can just live and experience. They think they have to figure everything out right now and know what the next step's going to be and everything. And that's just not life. So to be able to try, I would say to try new things, to embrace your fears, to do something that maybe everybody else isn't doing. Like one of the things I wish I had done when I was at JMU, for example, is to study abroad. I did know a couple of students who did that. But looking back on it, I was like, why didn't I do that? Like, I don't know why I didn't take advantage of that opportunity to try to do stuff like that. And college is really the time when you can do that, when you can get into different clubs and organizations and have conversations, because you are in this microcosm of the world. Go and explore and learn how to have conversations with people from a different race, different background, because if you can do it in that setting, when it's JMU, then you will have the skills to maybe do it outside of that setting as well.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, I was looking at my clock because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. We have about 7 minutes remaining in the session. And so now this is my favorite part of the whole panel discussion, because I love hearing the responses and it allows us to be reflective. So what I'd love you all to think about and then respond to is, if you could tell your college-aged self something that you know now, what would you say? What advice would you give to your young self?
I would say that I would tell myself I can be and do anything I want to do. Yeah, just put my mind to it and go for it.
Outstanding.
I agree with Melody. And another thing for me, my college age self now, I would definitely say, stop worrying about what other people think. Get over that. Just like you said, when you know what you want to do, like I said earlier, don't doubt yourself. If you put your mind to it, you are smart enough and you work hard enough and you believe hard enough and keep God first. You'll be amazed what you can achieve.
Great advice, Sheldon.
I agree with Shelton. The first thing I would tell my young age self is always keep God first, no matter what. Because oftentimes in school, you allow yourself to get caught up in mess. And oftentimes the mess you allow yourself to get caught up in, after you think about the mistakes that you've made, you realize, I should have never done this from the start, So, but keeping God first in your life really keeps you focused. So I would definitely, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have been doing a lot more soul searching of keeping God first in my life, as opposed to getting caught up with what everybody else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone agreeing with everyone, but definitely what Shelton said of not worrying what other people think, especially being as an athlete Shelton was talking about. I think you kind of get caught up in the mindset of I have to act a certain way, I have to be a certain way, and that's definitely not the case, and that's not the case for any Black students on JMU. Be yourself, whatever you want to do it. Don't limit yourself in the experience that you can have while you're on campus and the experience that you can have once you graduate. It's a big, big world out there, like Danielle said, and you can do a lot of different things. So don't set your mind on I have to do one thing, I have to do another thing. Experience as much as possible.
Nice. Danielle, Mecca, any advice to your younger selves?
My advice would involve self-love. I didn't realize how important it was until I got older, but the person I am today would not have been around some of the people I interacted with at JMU. So I would definitely say a lesson in self-love goes a long way.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is all excellent. I probably would just say to my younger self, it's gonna be okay. You know, when you're young, you, your perspective is short, you know, and you just don't have the perspective to know it's gonna work out. And I just to live in the moment and not be so concerned about the future. We obviously have to be concerned about the future, but to not to the detriment of us appreciating and experiencing where you are right now, because all you ever have is right now. And to not be so consumed with the future that you forget to live today.
Absolutely. Sound advice. Sad to tell you all, we have reached the end of our panel. You can now take a breath. You are off the hot seat. I could do this, you know, for days because I just enjoy this. I love the exchange. You know, we've talked about it. It's family time. It's an opportunity to come together and share stories. And so for me, this has been a heartening, you know, evening. I've loved the conversation. I've loved the stories, the openness, the vulnerability. It's incredible. So thank you all so much for your time today and serving on the panel. Thank you who attended the panel tonight. Hopefully you heard some good stories. You heard some good advice that you can carry with you. Certainly, you know, for those of you who are willing and able, I would encourage you all to get involved in the Black Alumni Chapter because continuing to do phenomenal work. And again, there's a lot more good work that we can continue to do. And so I will turn it over to you, Paula, for any final, you know, thoughts to kind of close us out. But I wanted to just thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this with you tonight.
Great job, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have one question in the chat that said, what are things that BAC could do to keep all others involved or keep you coming back to Madison? Anybody want to just kind of throw out some ideas very quick before we conclude?
Definitely the mentorship program, Paula, is finding out a way where we can try and interact as best as possible of bringing in as many African Americans postgraduate back into the alumni chapter so we can just kind of keep that within a consistent flow and again, keep doing it as much as possible and as often as possible. That's something I think that would increase the engagement.
I could tell you something real quick would be parking. When I went back on campus last time, it was like I had to park way off campus and shuttle in and everything. I was like, golly. But that, and then I'll also say it would be cool if like, because people like me, I haven't been back I took my son to go see campus in 2016, that was 2017. That's the last time I went back. And so it would be cool to, if it was somewhere I could go to that was like, okay, alumni center or something where, okay, I could get a quick tour, catch up, see what's happened, what's changed since last time I was on campus, because it was so much. I'm just driving around and looking and trying not to hit people walking across the street. You know, it would be cool to have something like that, where it's like one place you could go as an alumni to kind of catch up in like a meeting center or something. I don't know.
I know one of the things that we used to do many years ago was it was a Black Alumni Career Day. I think doing many of the workshops and things that we did back in the day, I think would encourage the alums to return, but it will also allow us to just meet and greet and come together. And this way we can engage more to see, how we can, improve the enrollment, how we can be more supportive with the Black Alumni Chapter. I know we have an old school scholarship that we provide every year, and we trying to get more and more alums to get involved with that process as well. So we provide scholarships for students each and every year. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do. And oftentimes once we graduate, we get caught up in our, with our families and things of that nature. But we just probably need to create some type of program where we all can get back from a career perspective to see what we can do to help other students.
Thank you. So just so you know, Shelton, we do have a center called Lulu Alumni Center, but if you're talking about a Black space, that's a different story. Yeah, so but we can all try to figure it out. And Reggie, we'll take in consideration some of those ideas that you're talking about. So in closing out, I want to say thank you to everyone. Your experiences and stories that you were sharing tonight are wonderful. This is going to help us in terms of just the future alums that are going to come on board and some of the current students. So I just wanted kind of to say, we do have leadership roles and positions available. A lot of the BAC current leaders are going to be coming off the board. And so if you are interested in becoming part of the BAC, there is the application enrollment process going on now until November 12th. If you want to know that link, I don't have it right now, but if you want to know the link, just hit me up at jmubac@gmail.com and we can send you that link to apply. The other thing is that we are connecting with the undergrads. So I just want to plug this program. It's in person on homecoming on Friday from 3 to 5. So if you're on campus from 3 to 5, it's called Leading by Design. And Tiffany is a part of our leadership, is leading that, and basically is trying to resolve the issue between undergrad and alum. A lot of the current students don't even know that Black Alumni Chapter exists. So we're trying to come up with solutions as to how we can get the awareness out to the current students. So if you are on campus early from 3 to 5, please feel free to stop by Leading by Design. It is at our X Lab location, and unfortunately I don't have the information, the name of the place, but if you go onto our social media, our Instagram or Facebook account, you can see exactly where that location is, and I would encourage you guys to do that. It's a wonderful program that we've been doing. We're in our 3rd session, so please, if you can, attend that. And if you can attend any of the homecoming events. So hopefully you've registered. I'm looking at everybody. Hopefully everybody's registered for the homecoming events and look forward to seeing family. We will be doing it in family style, which means, of course, a lot of fun, laughing, joking, and I won't say drinking, but there will be drinking on campus. Probably shouldn't have said that, but I'm just gonna let it be known because we all like that. At this point, I would say thank you again. Unless there's anybody else has anything they want to say as a final word.
Actually, yes, we have a message from Valerie Gant. Says it's not a question, but alumni are invited to stop by the new CMIS location in the Student Success Center, 1213 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and also see the ICGC plots. So invitation for, if you're on campus, check it out.
There's a lot of things going on campus. That's another one. The other thing is through all that plot, if you've never been, Quad Fest is good too, which is going to be basically from 5 to I think 7, and then they're going to have a movie afterwards if you can have your kids coming on campus. So come out and enjoy homecoming and enjoy the family. Again, there is a COVID restriction in terms of if you're inside. Make sure you have your mask with you. Other than that, I have nothing else, but can we just do, I guess, let's do, was it Go Dukes or do you want to do JMU Dukes? Which one do you want to do? We got to end it somehow. Which one?
She said it with Dukes.
Okay, Jonathan, lead it off for us. Everybody unmute. Wait a minute. Everybody's got to unmute.
I say let's leave it to Kai because he's the youngest one.
All right, Kai.
You got the strongest lung.
Kai, you're the youngest one. Let's lead it off.
JMU.
Night, everyone. Thank you again.
Everybody.
Take care.
This was fun. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.